Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle, and in this video I want to show you some special books from my collection that are over 100 years old. And we are going to start with this edition that I have of Little Minister by J.M. Barrie. He wrote this in 1891, and the edition that I have is 105 years old. This is a story set in Thrums, a Scottish weaving village, based on Barrie's birthplace, and concerns Gavin Dishart, a young impoverished minister with his first congregation. The weavers he serves riot in protest against reductions in their wages and harsh working conditions. So this edition that I have is really cool. I actually really like it. It's in, it's not in perfect condition, but that's okay with me. So in the front here, we have an inscription, "To Annie from the boys, Christmas 1916. And then taped in here, it says, "When Frampton's jolly bronze statue of Sir James M. Barrie's Peter Pan was ready for installation in Kensington Gardens, London, Sir James contrived to have it erected by an immense force of workmen between dusk and dawn, so that his friends, the children, might think it had been put there by the fairies." That's cool. Robert Haven, Schaffer, Peter, Pantheism, Macmillan. I thought that was cool. All right, so there you go. I'll just give you a little look at this edition by Hurst and Company, The Little Minister, and I wanted to read you from the beginning because I thought the beginning was good. "Long ago, in the days when our caged blackbirds never saw a king's soldier without whistling impudently, 'Come o'er the water to Charlie,' a minister of Thrums was to be married, but something happened and he remained a bachelor." So there you have it. There's the first one off my shelf that's over 100 years old, Little Minister by the same author of Peter Pan. Next up, we have England's Story. This is Macmillan's Canadian School series, and this is 103 years old. So you can see it says on the front, authorized by the Advisory Board of the Department of Education for Manitoba, which is a province sort of in the middle of Canada, and I lived there, Aaron and I lived there for 12 years. Price 30 cents. The Macmillan Company of Canada Limited. So this is a book that children would have received in school. And it has a number of inscriptions in the front of the children who owned this book. This one's from 1919, and this one is from 1924. And so, of course, because Canada is part of the Dominion, the history of England would have been a part of Canadian curriculum. So this is George V, King of Great Britain and Ireland, and the British dominions around, no, sorry, the British dominions beyond the seas. And that would include Canada. So here's the table of contents. The Romans in Britain, the Saxons and Danes, the Normans, the Plantagenets, the houses of York and Lancaster, the Tudor sovereigns, the House of Stuart, the House of Hanover, the Empire as it is today. So yeah, I thought that was just a cool little look at some Canadian history there, along with some English history, British history. All right, this next one is really cool. This is from the works of Alexandre Dumas, 1893. It is 128 years old, and we have the complete set of 9 volumes. This is a set of books that has been passed down in the family. We received it a few months ago from Aaron's uncle, who received it from his father, who received it from his father, and I believe one more time. This is a really special collection of books. And so as you can see, it has great illustrations. This is volume 3 in this series, and it has the Vicomte de Bragelonne, or 10 years later, being the completion of the Three Musketeers, and 20 years after, part 1. And there are some illustrations in here, so I'm going to flip through for a minute to get to. Yeah, really cool illustrations. I'll show you one more. So yeah, that's a really cool thing in the collection that I'm really proud to have. Okay, next up is The English Country Life by W. Raymond from 1910. So this edition that I have is 111 years old. And what I love about this edition is these gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations in here that are just beautiful. So this book is by Walter Raymond, illustrations in color from watercolor drawings by Wilfred Ball, RF. And so it's a bit of the story plus some illustrations. Some of the following sketches and stories have appeared in Country Life, the Westminster Gazette, the Daily Mail, and the London Magazine. The author has to thank the editors of these periodicals for permission to include these in this volume. So I'm going to show you a few more of the illustrations because they are so beautiful. And also, this book has deckled edges. So for those of you that think deckled edges is maybe a newer fad, it's not. And they've got descriptions, and so this one, for example, says old man flailing. This one says old sexton Huckleby. I just think that these are gorgeous. All right, I'll find one more for you and then we will move on. Okay, so that is The English Country Life. Next up is White's Grammar book, White's Grammar School Texts Texts, 1887. This is 134 years old. And this is Cesar, book number 3. And so this is the text that students would have received. Caesar's A Gallic War, book number 3. So it's got a vocabulary by John T. White. And so this is all in Latin, and the students would have used this for learning Latin, for translating. And what I love about this too, I received this from my dad last year, he had it in his collection, is you have notes and annotations by students, which I think is great. So you can see the annotations in there. Here's abbreviations, vocabulary at the back. I'm glad I never had to take Latin in school. Okay, so there it is, White's Grammar School Texts. And then another cool one that I received from my dad. This is More Stories from Shakespeare as Told to the Children from 1914. I'm guessing this one was a little hard to tell the year, and so it's about 107 years old. I believe this is supposed to be Richard III, but I could be wrong. All right, so this is edited by Louis Chisholm, and these are stories told by Jeanie Long, and so there's some great pictures in here. And so basically she's just taking Shakespeare plays and telling them as stories for children. And so this book contains Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, The Life and Death of King John, Macbeth, The Tragedy of King Richard III, King Lear, Pericles, Prince of Tyre, and Julius Caesar. And so these would be stories read to children. And there are a few illustrations. Here's one. This page is coming out. I have to be careful. So there you go, Shakespeare as told to the children. And now this one is very entertaining. This is The Etiquette of Today by Edith B. Ordway from 1920. So this is 101 years old. This is revised and enlarged, printed in New York. And this one is great. This has got all kinds of etiquette rules. So the rewards of etiquette, family etiquette, conversations and correspondence, the personal card and the engraved invitation, duties of the chaperone. So yeah, this one is just very entertaining to read through, just to see what was expected as far as etiquette went in 1920. So let's see, I'm gonna find some little piece to read to you because that's entertaining. So this is from Behavior in Public. The test of the depth of one's courtesy is found in one's attitude to strangers and the public at large. If one observes toward them the little courtesies, then one may be safely trusted to keep to the highest ideal of social intercourse in times of emergency and rigid testing. At a social occasion of any sort, everyone present is under obligation to do what he can to add to the general pleasure. If he cannot or will not, he should remain away. If he is asked to play a musical instrument or sing, he should do so without urging, for his talents, except in very special cases wherein he would not be asked, are or should be at the disposal of the company or at the request of his hostess. All right, and then next up is the Shakespeare Symphony by Harold Bayley from 1906. So this is 115 years old. And this one is actually really fascinating. I have an interest in Shakespeare, so I find this really interesting. An introduction of the ethics of the Elizabethan drama. This was published in London by Chapman and Hall Limited. And the inscription says, I can't read the inscription, but the first one is 1913 and the second one is 1943, maybe? All right, so let's see what we have in here. This one is in some rough shape, but it's got such interesting, content. So the table of contents: London's Parnassus, the sweetness and gravity of the dramatic mind, the state of learning, ecclesiasticism, religion, educational purpose, medicine and physiology, Elizabethan audiences, classisms, the word makers, problematic manuscripts, miscellaneous similitudes, error, wit and metaphor, traits and idiosyncrasies, and then conclusion. So yeah, I just think this is really interesting, and I need to read more from this book. And then finally, we have the Strand Magazine from 1904. So this is 117 years old. The Strand is an illustrated monthly magazine, and this is a bind up of July through December 1904. And I got this because there are some Sherlock stories in here. So you see there's some illustrations here. And so we have The Return of Sherlock Holmes by A. Conan Doyle, The Adventure of the Golden Pince Nez. I'm never very good at saying that. So you got those stories plus illustrations. And then of course, because it's the Strand Magazine, it includes a whole bunch of other pieces written by other people. And I was able to get this fairly inexpensively because a child had colored in some of the pictures, which I think is actually just funny. It adds to it. It shows that it's had a life, right? That it was in somebody's house and a child colored it in. Because for the most part, that child did a pretty good job. So this article here, this is the memoirs of Sarah Bernhardt. Again, more coloring in. Let's see. The Happy Life. A Bedroom on a Haystack. And more from The Return of Sherlock Holmes. So yeah, I was really happy to find this. There's some really interesting stuff in here. Curiosities for those who are curious. All right, so there you have it. Those are some books from my shelves that are over 100 years old. I hope you found that interesting. Do you collect old books? Do you have any that are maybe passed down in your family from parents or grandparents or uncles or aunts? I'd love to know about that in the comment section down below, and I will see you for another video soon. Bye.